and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
It's the Keith Byars Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, right here on Dayton's home of the Buckeyes, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Keith Byars Radio Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. The phone number is 937-518-1410. Or you can let your fingers do the walking. Old telephone book reference at KAB41 is my Twitter handle. Is how you get it. People say, what's a phone book? But I know some people my age and older and maybe a little younger, they know what a phone book is. Let your fingers do the walking. But before I went to break, I was asking you, how many baseball games are you going to attend this year? And I'm talking about professional baseball. Let me clarify that. I don't mean going to see, your son play baseball or t-ball, your son or daughter. And that would certainly count, but I was talking about professional. Are you going to make it to any professional games? Dayton Dragons, they do attendance pretty well, but there's room for you and your family to get out there and watch the Dayton Dragons play baseball against an opponent. And get down and see professional baseball also. The big league baseball with the Reds and whoever they play. So I told you before the break, I've been to 2 games. My goal is to get to at least 4 to 6 games this year. Be a good baseball season for me. So I got to get down to the Great America Ballpark and take in some baseball, down there. So baseball is one of my favorite sports. The first organized sport I played ever was baseball. And the last organized sport I played was football. But I love them all. Meant to say at the top of the show, at the back end of my show, I like to get into Lee's Famous Recipe bucket of questions. So that just questions that get sent in to me throughout the week over, via email, through the stations, call letters, or Twitter, so various ways, to get me through social media to ask your questions. So we got 5 questions here. I'm going to let my producer read them, and I'll answer your questions. This is the Lee's Famous Recipes bucket of questions for Keith Byars.
All right, it's the Lee's Famous Recipe bucket of questions. As Keith Byars just mentioned, every week we bring you 5 questions that you, the listeners, have sent in, whether it be to Keith directly, myself for Keith, or to the station. So, Keith, question number 1, we're going to start off with Marcus Freeman. Dayton.
Marcus.
You and him have a lot of similarities. 2 stars within the 937.
All-Americans at Ohio State.
Yeah, Ohio State success, of course. Both made it to the NFL. So, but now things become a little dicey because now you got to pick sides, right? Or maybe you didn't have to pick sides, but now he's forcing Buckeyes to pick sides here. Marcus Freeman appeared to have taken another shot at Ohio State, implying that student athletes don't have to attend class like they at Ohio State, like they have to at Notre Dame. As a former Buckeye and also a local Dayton star, just like Marcus Freeman, Keith, how have you perceived these jabs? Because to be fair, this isn't the first time he has kind of taken some jabs at Ohio State through media.
Usually when you take a jab, it's, to get one up on you. Like I talked about earlier in the show, Harbaugh speaking to me, that's a jab. But it's direct. It's to my face. And I get it. They won the game last year. That's okay. That's okay. And, what was the purpose for it? What's the game? Well, the game was Harbaugh. Hey, I'm one up on you right now. I know y'all been spanking us the last how many years in a row, but we're talking about right now. What have you done for me lately? Okay, fine. So for Marcus Freeman to make the quote, I have it right here in front of me. You don't go to class at places like that, okay? You take some online classes, show up for your appointments at Notre Dame, you're forced every day to go to class. So online classes aren't part of college curriculum anymore. You're not allowed to take online classes. Everybody takes online classes. And some guys have classes they got to go into. Depends on you, the individual, what your schedule works out to be. So what is he talking about? Marcus. This is, like you said, it's one time you make excuse it as a Freudian slip. The second and third time, no, that's you. And like the great Maya Angelou, the poet Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them. So I'm always going to love Marcus, from being a Buckeye and what he's done for, Buckeye Nation. But, dude, you're tarnishing all of that. This is twice. You're never going to be, never is a really big word. You're never going to be Ohio State's head football coach one day. Not that you should be thinking about being that head coach one day. You just now knew at your current, head coaching position. It's your first time head coaching job. You're 0-1. And you're not in a position to take jabs like that. Why would you even take jabs if you are in a position to do that? You just don't do that. And Marcus knows better. And he's old enough to know better, so he has to be held accountable for what he said. I have no problem with him personally. I got a problem with him professionally to make stupid comments like that. And Marcus is better than that. But he's not. He's in a sunken place right now. He's drinking the Notre Dame and the Irish coffee and Irish this and Irish that. Marcus, hey, but it's your bad line. I mean, and like I said, it's a zero sum. He has nothing to gain. Notre Dame plays Ohio State first game of the season. Just for giggles, Notre Dame wins. Not only do they win by 3 touchdowns. What does that mean? I mean, do you think, okay, I told y'all we're way better than this school. They're not us. It's one freaking game. That's your best scenario. But the other thing happens, Ohio State beats them, not only beats them, blow them out by 3 or 4 touchdowns. Now, who's got something to gain? Certainly not Marcus. You got everything to lose. And even if you win this game against Ohio State, how much are you really winning? In the grand scheme of things, nothing. So you have way more to lose than anything to gain. So that's why you don't make comments like that. Sorry for you, Marcus, but hey, you're a grown man. You did that to yourself.
It's the Lee's Famous Recipe Bucket of Questions live here on the Keith Byars Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Every week, 5 questions come in from you, the listeners, fans of Keith, fans of the Buckeyes, and that was a very good question, number 1, involving Marcus Freeman. Again, as the build for Ohio State Notre Dame on September 3rd continues to get bigger and bigger. Question number 2, Keith, outside of the shoe, what was your favorite stadium to play in during your college days?
So that's a good question, but it almost sounds like a Big Ten question, because
you played there more. Yeah,
you play there more. But I'm gonna answer twofold. So I'll give you my favorite Big Ten stadium to play in, and my favorite college stadium to play in. So my favorite would probably be. Even though, shucks, Purdue, we lost, but it was going by the field. The field was in real good condition, and I liked it. It had grass, so we was on mostly AstroTurf in those days. So, but that would be more of the playing surface. But the stadium itself, as far as the lure and the crowd for being on the road, it would probably be. Illinois, Illinois or Iowa. Certainly not Minnesota because they had that dome. It wasn't no fun playing in there. Wisconsin, nah. I'm going to go with that. I'm going. I didn't really like playing in Illinois. It's just so freaking windy there. Michigan State. No, but that was at home. It blew my shoe off. Yeah, so that's a good question. So So outside of the Big Ten, Fiesta Bowl.
I was gonna say, I figured
the Fiesta Bowl. The Rose Bowl was awesome to play in too. Yeah, so Rose Bowl with Fiesta Bowl, even though we lost the Rose Bowl. It's just you dream of playing in that place. Yeah, so the Rose Bowl was awesome to play in.
Question number 3 for Lee's Famous Recipe Bucket of Questions. Obviously, in your 13-year NFL career, Keith, you played for New England. You played for the Eagles. You played for the Dolphins and the Jets. But which team that you played for had the best home field advantage? Now, this could technically be home field atmosphere. Like, which of the 4 teams that you played for, which of the 4 teams' home games just had the best atmosphere, or gave
that's
that biggest
easy. It's an easy answer. Philadelphia, by far.
Nice.
The closest would be New England, but Philadelphia number 1. You are at home. It's us against them. Whereas a lot of times you go on the road, it's us against the whole stadium, us against the world. Now it's you Philly people are behind you. as long as you guys playing well. Y'all start playing bad, boo! Not that they just booing not you personally, your performance personally. That's what they're booing. But you got a home field advantage. We're gonna be hard to beat. In Philadelphia. But the opposite of that question, what was the least advantaged stadium to play in of those 4 teams was Miami Dolphins. Love playing in Miami. But when you play the East Coast teams and some of the mid-coast teams, the old traditional organizations, whenever you play the Jets or the Giants or the Patriots or the Bears, they score a touchdown in the stadium. You're like, God, a whole lot of Bears fans here today, a lot of Jet fans here at the game today. And the Miami Dolphins is just still a young franchise, relatively speaking. They're just now getting grandparents watching season ticket holders for the Miami Dolphins.
All right, moving on. Question number 4 for today's least famous recipe bucket of questions on the Keith Byars Show. Keith, before you became a college star and, of course, an NFL star, you were just a football fan growing up, of course. Who were the players that you grew up being a fan of? A lot of people grew up being fans of yourself, of course. But when you were younger and in high school here in the Miami Valley, who were the players that you looked up to? With the college and in the pros as well.
Good question. My first football hero, because individually, but everybody that played for the Cleveland Browns when I was a kid was my favorite players. But my most favorite Cleveland Brown, my first most famous Cleveland Brown player that I grew up idolized, I wore his number in when I was in high school, was Leroy Kelly. Love Leroy Kelly. When I finally got the opportunity to meet him, I said, man, you was my idol as a kid. I said, my father used to love to hear me say your name. I used to say your name funny as a kid. He said, Leroy Kelly, Leroy Kelly. My father used to bust out laughing. I'm Leroy Kelly, running around the house and stuff like that. So Leroy Kelly was my first professional football fan that I grew up watching. And then college football player, I was a little older, but I've always loved the running back positions. Archie Griffin was one of my heroes. Archie's 10 years older than me, so I grew up, being a big fan of him. And after he won 2 Heisman trophies, 74, 75, who didn't like to watch Tony Dorsett run that ball in 76? And then he handed the ball over to Earl Campbell, who I probably most, similar styles, being able to run over and past people, was one of my heroes. Also, the Earl, the Tyler Rose. I love Earl Campbell. So those names, back to back to back. By 77 when Earl Campbell won the Heisman Trophy winner, I'm 14 years old. Those running backs, were my guys. And even though I wasn't old enough to watch Jim Brown play, he was one of my favorite football players from the highlights, because I grew up a Cleveland Browns fan. My family, my father's from Pittsburgh, and so all those guys are Steeler fans. And so in the 70s, when they put 4 Super Bowls on top of my head, y'all didn't do that when Jim Brown played. Jim Brown, we got the Steelers today. I'm going to get me some yards. And so I used to reference those names, even though I was too young to see Jim Brown play. All those players, I play all homage to it, because, those guys were great players and they all inspired me to go on to be great like them one day.
Any player that you remember being a fan of growing up that you then became a teammate of, and what were those moments like? Because I'm always fascinated by those, because I'm just a common folk dude that's fan of everyone growing up. But I can't imagine growing up to be a professional athlete, and then the guys I looked up to now, I'm like standing across from an opponent standpoint or teammates.
Yeah, I mean, just like what tomorrow, I'm getting on a plane and flying to Philadelphia. Wasn't necessarily somebody I idol, but somebody I watched growing up, and that's Ron Jaworski.
Mm-hmm. Golf tournaments.
I'm playing Ron Jaworski's golf tournament. When I got to the Eagles in 1986, that was Jaworski's 13th year in the NFL. And so I was like, man, I remember watching you when I was in middle school. Before I was in high school, I've been watching you, Jaworski. You're old. So that was cool. Being able to, the Polish rifle, Jaws, when he get to the Eagles and, 76, 77, they traded for him, and a few years later in the Super Bowl. So I've been watching Ron Jaworski a long time. And now we're in the same locker room. You know, like, wow, I mean, this is different. Walter Payton, I played against Walter Payton my second game of my NFL career. I'm like, that's Sweetness over there. I remember watching the highlights of Sweetness. Then a couple of games later, you know, we're playing against the Dallas Cowboys. And that's Tony Dorsett, man. I remember watching win the Heisman Trophy with Pitt. Pitt is it. Oh, my God. Look at Tony Dorsett. I couldn't even hardly sit on the bench because I'm like, that's Tony Dorsett over there, man. That's Tony Dorsett, you know. After the game, hey, Tony, how you doing, man? Nice meeting you. You know, of course, we won the game. I was so, you know, more jovial, you know, attitude. But
you didn't fanboy out over Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and
no.
Michael Irvin? Why not?
No, I was happy they would play. Oh, we gonna spank y'all, Troy. Hey, Reggie and Clyde Simmer coming. Except Jordan gonna be right. You got a whipping. You got a whipping coming today, boy. Yes. So those. I mean, and then he wasn't a football player, but man, when I got drafted to the Philadelphia Eagles, my favorite basketball player plays for them, the Philadelphia 76ers, Dr. J. So I finally got to meet the Dr. J, and Dr. J knew my name. I was like, Dr. J knows me. Yeah. And I'm even friends with it. I have his telephone number. You know, so even now we sit around and smoke a cigar. I'm like, you're Dr. J, man. This is so cool. We're sitting around. You're Dr. J, man. So those times are nice. They're nice. It makes you, you know, feel like a kid all over again.
All right, good stuff. Last question, Keith. Again, if you're just tuning in, it's the Keith Byars Show presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Every week we do the Lee's Bucket of Questions. 5 questions sent in from you, the listeners, fans of Keith, whether to Keith directly or to the station. So question number 5 as we wrap up today's portion of Lee's Famous Recipe Bucket of Questions. Keith, you know, it's interesting with this build for the Ohio State-Notre Dame game. I don't really look at Notre Dame as a rival of Ohio State, but this does have a rivalry-type feel in the build-up towards this matchup, as crazy as that sounds. I don't view it as a rivalry, but it has that feel. But who is Ohio State's biggest non-Big Ten rivalry? Who's their biggest rival that's not a Big Ten opponent?
Well, you asked me that question 15, 20 years ago. I had a different answer. Today, maybe even by default, it would be Alabama, because the last 2 times they played in the college football playoffs, they're 50-50. Ohio State won the first matchup in the college football playoffs against Alabama, and Alabama won the second matchup between them two. But I would even go as far as to say Oklahoma. The home team is yet to win that rivalry, even though they've only played, I think if I'm not mistaken, 4 times. In all of college football, Ohio State and Oklahoma has only played 4 times. I played in one of those 4 games, and we went to Oklahoma, put the smack down on them there. And then when I decided to come to Ohio State in 1982, I knew Ohio State was playing Oklahoma in 1984. I said, in 1983, I should be the starting running back by then. Because in 1977, when Ohio State lost the first ever meeting between Oklahoma and Ohio State in the horseshoe, Huey Von Schaman, I can still see that field goal going through the uprights, you know, at the end of regulation, you know, the game-winning field goal. And I was like, man, I got to get I got to avenge. I have to avenge them. I got to get revenge against that. I got to make that happen. And so when we went to Oklahoma, we spanked them, and then they didn't play no more for almost 30 years, or maybe over 30 years. And then I can still see Jerome Baker, the linebacker from Ohio State, getting that scoop and score, running down there, scoring a touchdown. And then the following year, Baker Mayfield planting this, a flag into nothing, to not the ground. So Buckeyes, people remember that game. Even though all of the success and failures that Baker had with the Cleveland Browns, every time he had failure, I never did like him ever since he tried to plant that stadium. So they held that against him, still holding it against him. I still hold it against him. You don't do that. So that Oklahoma, so they're still 2-2. So whenever they play again, the tiebreaker will be what? So that's a rivalry.
All right, and that is the Lee's Famous Recipe Bucket of Questions.
All right, good deal. Well, we got through all those questions. Thank you, guys. Please feel free to send them in, throughout the course of the week. And, they're really good questions like the ones we got today. We will definitely read them on question and keep you in mind. One last question for you guys. Are you ready for some football? Yes? No? Maybe? I think a lot of you guys are. Justin, what about you? Are you ready for football season?
I'm tired of all the what ifs and the who's going, looking at schedules and trying to guess what the records. Yes,
You're ready
for high school football. I'm ready for college.
Yeah, we got
NFL,
we got some tentative high school football dates coming up, but I won't read those right now. So we're getting ready for football. But I asked myself the question, Keith, are you ready for football season? And my answer is no. I'm enjoying my summer right now. I've done football. I love football. I'm a football-holic, but I can wait. It'll be here before we know. Let the guys enjoy their off season. The month of June, they got OTAs and all that stuff. And, the House State and the college guys are just now getting indoctrinated into college with summer school and all that stuff. Marcus, some of our guys are at summer school right now. Summer school already started at Ohio State. So let them get academically sound before football kicks in. So I can wait for football season. It's coming. It'll be here before we know it. But in the meantime and in between time, let the players do what they do. And, hey, get out and watch a baseball game. Watch the NBA Finals tomorrow night. Football.